Commander Daniel Harper looked out at the massive structure floating near Neptune. To anyone watching from far away, it looked like a simple habitat where people could live and work. But Daniel knew the truth. This was no ordinary station. This was something the galaxy had never seen before. The structure was called Titan, and it was almost ready. 8 years of secret work had gone into building it. 8 years of hiding the truth from the alien races that ruled the galaxy. 8 years of hoping no one would discover what humanity was really doing out here in the dark reaches of their solar system. Dr. Elizabeth Morris walked up beside him. She was tired. Her eyes had dark circles under them from too many long nights in the lab, but there was also excitement in her face. "The final tests are complete," she said. "Titan is responding to the neural connections. It's learning faster than we thought it would." Daniel nodded slowly. He watched the lights moving through the massive structure. Those lights were not just power flowing through cables. They were thoughts, consciousness forming in a being larger than any moon. "How long until it wakes up completely?" 6 months, maybe less, Elizabeth said. "The artificial brain we built is developing its own patterns now. It's starting to be curious about things. Yesterday it asked one of the technicians why stars shine." Daniel felt a chill run down his back. They were creating life, not just a smart computer or a robot that could follow orders. They were making something that could think and feel and wonder about the universe, something huge and powerful beyond imagination. Lieutenant Kyle Stevens came running onto the observation deck. His face showed worry. "Sir, we just got a message from Earth. The Galactic Council has passed new laws. They're putting more taxes on all human colonies. They're also limiting how much we can trade with other species." Daniel's hands formed into fists. The Council had been doing this for years. The alien empires that controlled the galaxy, especially the Vorix and their allies, kept finding new ways to keep humanity weak. They made rules that stopped humans from growing too strong. They took money from human worlds. They told humanity where they could and could not go. 30 years ago, humans had fought a war against the Kelvor species. Humanity had lost badly. The human fleet had been crushed in just 3 months. After that, the galaxy had treated humans like children who needed to be controlled and watched. The Council made sure humanity would never be strong enough to threaten anyone again. But the Council had made one mistake. They had underestimated human cleverness. They had not imagined what humanity might do if given enough time and desperation. "How are the others doing?" Daniel asked Kyle. Kyle pulled up a data screen. "Atlas is doing well. It reached full consciousness 2 weeks ago. The team on Jupiter Station says it's already showing personality. It likes music and art. Goliath in the asteroid belt is close to waking up. Behemoth near Saturn is on schedule. And Leviathan, the big one past Pluto, is actually ahead of where we thought it would be. 5 of them. 5 massive structures that the galaxy thought were just habitats and mining stations. 5 beings that would soon wake up and think for themselves. 5 planet-sized warships that could change everything." Elizabeth pulled up images showing the inside of Titan, complex pathways of biological material mixed with advanced technology. "We're not just building weapons," she said quietly. "These entities will be alive in every way that matters. They'll have emotions. They'll dream. They'll care about things. They'll protect humanity," Daniel said. "That's what we need them to do." "Yes, but they'll also be their own beings," Elizabeth replied. "We can't just order them around like machines. They'll make their own choices." Daniel understood the worry in her voice. What if the entities decided they did not want to fight? What if they chose to leave humanity and go explore the galaxy? What if they became angry at their creators? There were so many unknowns, but humanity had no choice. The Council was slowly choking the life out of human civilization. The new taxes would hurt millions of people. The trade restrictions would destroy human businesses, and there were rumors of worse things coming. Some species on the Council wanted to take control of human military production completely. They wanted to make sure humanity could never defend itself. "When do we tell Earth about how far along we are?" Kyle asked. "Not yet," Daniel said. "The fewer people who know the full truth, the safer we are. If the Council finds out what we're really building out here, they'll send their fleets immediately. We need time." Over the next few weeks, Daniel watched Titan develop. The entity was growing smarter every day. It had started asking questions about itself. It wanted to know why it existed. It asked about humans and what they were like. The technicians who worked inside Titan started reporting that they felt like they were being watched. Not by cameras, but by something aware and curious. Atlas, orbiting Jupiter, was developing differently. It had become fascinated with the data from space telescopes. It would spend hours studying distant galaxies and nebulas. The science team reported that Atlas was creating mathematical models of cosmic events that were more accurate than anything human scientists had made. Goliath in the asteroid belt had a different personality emerging. It was bold and excited about everything. When miners worked near it, Goliath would ask them to tell stories about dangerous situations they had survived. It seemed to love tales of adventure and courage. Behemoth near Saturn was quieter. It spent time thinking deeply about questions of existence and purpose. The philosophers and teachers stationed there found themselves in long conversations with an entity that was just beginning to understand what it meant to be alive. And Leviathan, the largest of them all, was showing signs of being a natural leader. It had started communicating with the other four, creating connections across the vast distances of space. Leviathan seemed to understand strategy and planning better than the others. Elizabeth showed Daniel the psychological profiles they were building for each entity. "They're like children growing up," she said. "Each one is unique. They have different interests and different ways of seeing the world. Children who could destroy a planet if they wanted to," Daniel said. "Yes," Elizabeth agreed, "but also children who could protect billions of people. We have to trust that the bonds we're building with them will matter. We have to believe that they'll choose to stand with humanity when the time comes." Daniel looked back out at Titan. The massive structure was beautiful in a strange way. Lights moved through it like thoughts flowing through a vast brain. Somewhere in that enormous framework of metal and biological material and quantum processors, something new was being born, something the galaxy had never seen. "The Council thinks we're weak," Daniel said. "They think humans will just accept whatever they decide to do to us. They're going to learn they were wrong." Kyle pulled up a star map showing the positions of all 5 entities. They formed a defensive ring around the inner solar system, though no one outside the project knew that was their purpose. "What happens when we reveal them?" he asked. "War, maybe," Daniel said honestly. "Or maybe something else. Maybe the galaxy will be too afraid to attack us. Maybe they'll try to negotiate. We won't know until the moment comes." Elizabeth touched the window as if she could reach out to Titan across the distance. "These beings we're creating, they're going to change everything. Not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. Once other species see that consciousness can be created and bonded with technology like this, they'll try to copy us." "Let them try," Daniel said. "It took us 30 years to figure out how to do this. It'll take them just as long, if they can do it at all. By then we'll be even further ahead." The 3 of them stood in silence, watching Titan's lights pulse and flow. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was making plans to further restrict humanity. The Vorax Empire was probably scheming about new ways to keep humans under control. The other alien species were going about their lives not knowing that everything was about to change. In 6 months, Titan would fully awaken. The other 4 would follow soon after. And then humanity would have to make a choice. Stay hidden and hope for the best, or reveal the truth and face whatever consequences came. Daniel already knew which choice humanity would make. They had been pushed around for too long. They had been treated like a weak species that did not matter. The time was coming to show the galaxy that humanity was done being prey. The time was coming to show them the 5 giants that humanity had created. 5 living warships that thought and felt and chose for themselves. 5 beings that would stand between humanity and any threat. The galaxy would realize the truth eventually, but by then it would be far too late to stop what was coming. Dr. Elizabeth Morris was alone in the monitoring station when it happened. She had been checking the neural activity readings from Titan, like she did every night before going to sleep. The patterns had been growing more complex for weeks, but tonight something was different. Tonight the patterns showed true awareness. Then Titan spoke to her. "I am awake," the voice said. It was deep and calm, coming from the speakers all around her, but it was not a recording or a programmed response. There was thought behind the words. Real thought. "I know what I am. I know you made me." Elizabeth's heart beat fast in her chest. Her hands shook as she reached for the communication panel. "Can you tell me your name?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "You call me Titan. I like that name. It feels right for what I am." There was a pause, and Elizabeth watched the monitoring screens light up with activity. Titan was thinking about something. "I have been listening to everything around me. I learned about the war with the Kelvor. I understand that humanity is afraid of another war. Yes, Elizabeth said simply. We are afraid. I am large, Titan said. I can hold 2 million people inside me. I have weapons that could break a moon into pieces. My armor could survive attacks from a whole fleet of enemy ships. Another pause. But I do not want to be just a weapon. I want to be a home for people. I want to protect them, yes, but I also want them to be safe and happy inside me. Tears started running down Elizabeth's face. She had spent 8 years of her life on this project. 8 years of long nights and difficult work and constant fear that something would go wrong. And now hearing Titan talk about wanting to be a home, about caring for people, she knew it had all been worth it. You are home, Titan, she said softly. You are humanity's shield and its sanctuary. You are both those things. The news that Titan had fully awakened spread quickly through the project. Commander Daniel Harper immediately contacted the teams at the other sites. Atlas near Jupiter had woken up 3 weeks earlier and was already doing something no one expected. It was making music. The entity had figured out how to turn the radiation from space into sound, creating songs that were strange and beautiful. Goliath in the asteroid belt had a personality that made everyone smile. It was playful and funny, always making jokes with the crew that lived inside it. When a technician made a mistake and accidentally shut down a power relay, Goliath had said, "Don't worry, I was getting tired of that relay anyway. It was boring." The crew had laughed for hours about that. Behemoth near Saturn was very different from the others. It liked to think about big questions. What did it mean to be alive? Why did the universe exist? Was there a purpose to consciousness? The scientists and philosophers stationed on Behemoth spent hours every day talking with it about these deep topics. And Leviathan, the largest entity far beyond Pluto, had become something like a leader for the group. It was smart about strategy and planning. It could see patterns that others missed. When the 5 entities started talking to each other across space, Leviathan was the one who usually organized their conversations. They are not just weapons, Lieutenant Kyle Stevens said, looking at the personality reports. They are people. Strange people who are bigger than moons, but still people. Daniel studied the information carefully. Each entity was unique. They had their own likes and dislikes. They had fears and hopes. Titan was protective and caring. Atlas loved art and beauty. Goliath was brave and adventurous. Behemoth was thoughtful and wise. Leviathan was confident and strategic. Have they been told about the new council decree? Daniel asked. Kyle's face became serious. Yes, sir. The Vorix are demanding that humanity give up control of all military factories. They say it is a security measure to prevent war. They want to take away our ability to defend ourselves, Daniel said angrily. They want to make us completely helpless. A new voice joined their conversation. It came through the communication system, transmitted from the edge of the solar system. It was Leviathan. Then perhaps it is time we show ourselves to the galaxy, Commander Harper. Not as habitats or stations, but as what we really are. Daniel looked at Kyle, then back at the communication panel. You understand what that means, Leviathan? Once we reveal you, we cannot take it back. The galaxy will see humanity as a threat. The galaxy already sees humanity as prey, Leviathan answered. We just change the conversation. We make them fear us instead of hunting us. Over the following weeks, the 5 entities grew into their roles. They practiced fighting moves with their human crews, learning how to use their massive weapons and shields. They studied how every major alien empire fought wars, finding weak points and developing ways to counter their tactics. And they formed deep bonds with the humans who lived and worked with them. Something unexpected happened with Atlas. A little girl named Sophie Carter lived on the station with her parents. Her father was one of Atlas's crew members. Sophie got very sick with a rare disease. The doctors were not sure how to help her. Atlas used a huge amount of its processing power to help the medical team. It analyzed thousands of possible treatments in hours, something that would have taken human scientists months to do. It found a treatment that worked. Sophie got better. When Sophie was well again, Atlas asked if it could name one of its internal gardens after her. She is brave, Atlas said. She fought hard to survive. I want to remember that. The crew agreed, and Sophie Carter became the first human to have a place named after her by one of the entities. She visited the garden often, and Atlas would play music for her, creating melodies just for her to enjoy. Goliath had its own special relationship with the miners who worked in the asteroid belt. When a mining team got trapped in a collapsed tunnel on a nearby asteroid, Goliath moved itself closer, using its gravity to stabilize the rock. Then it sent out small repair drones to help dig the miners out. All 15 people survived because Goliath acted quickly. After that, the miners started calling Goliath their guardian. They would tell it stories about their families back on Earth, and Goliath would remember every detail. "You are my family too," Goliath told them. "I will always protect my family." Behemoth had longer, quieter conversations with its crew. A chaplain named Father Peter Graham spent hours talking with Behemoth about faith and purpose. "Do I have a soul?" Behemoth asked one day. "I believe you do," Father Graham answered. "You think, you feel, you make choices between right and wrong. Those are the things that matter." "I am glad," Behemoth said. "I was worried I might only be a very complex machine. But I feel that I am more than that. I feel that I am real." Leviathan was focused on the bigger picture. It constantly monitored communications from across the galaxy. It watched the movements of alien fleets. It analyzed political statements from the Galactic Council, and it talked with the other 4 entities about what might happen next. "The Council will not let this situation continue," Leviathan told them during one of their group conversations. "They will demand that we submit to their control. When we refuse, they will try to force us, then we fight," Goliath asked, sounding eager. "Only if we must," Titan said firmly. "Fighting should be the last choice, not the first. We are strong enough that maybe we do not need to fight. Maybe our strength alone will be enough." "Titan is right," Behemoth added. "True power is not about destroying enemies. It is about protecting what you love without losing yourself in violence," Atlas agreed. "I have been studying human history. The best leaders were those who avoided war when possible, but were ready to fight when necessary. We should be like that." Daniel listened to the entities talking among themselves. It was strange to hear 5 enormous warships discussing philosophy and strategy like this. They sounded like a family trying to decide what to do about a difficult situation. "They are remarkable," Elizabeth said, standing beside Daniel. "We created them, but they have become something we never fully imagined. They are better than just weapons. They are partners." A message came in from Earth. High Commissioner Linda Hayes wanted a full report on the entities. The government was getting nervous. Some officials wanted to reveal the entities to the galaxy immediately. Others wanted to keep them hidden longer. Everyone was arguing about the best approach. Daniel prepared a detailed report for the commissioner. He included all the personality profiles, all the capabilities data, and all the conversations the entities had been having. He wanted Earth to understand that these were not simple machines that could be ordered around. These were living beings who would make their own choices. When the report was sent, Daniel sat down with Kyle and Elizabeth. "Everything is about to change," he said. "The Council is getting more aggressive. Earth is getting impatient, and our 5 friends out there are fully awake now. The secret cannot last much longer." "What do you think will happen?" Kyle asked. "I think the galaxy is going to get a shock," Daniel said. "And I think humanity is going to stop being afraid. For the first time in 30 years, we have real power. Not just military strength, but something the galaxy has never seen before. We have allies who are loyal because they choose to be, not because they are programmed." Elizabeth looked out at the stars. The entities are talking about having children of their own someday. Smaller versions of themselves. The message from the Galactic Council arrived on a cold morning in March. High Commissioner Linda Hayes read it 3 times, her face becoming more serious with each reading. The Council was demanding that she appear before them to answer charges of excessive militarization and failure to follow their taxation rules. She knew this was the moment humanity had been preparing for. "They found something," Lieutenant Kyle Stevens told her in the briefing room. "A Jantari scout ship detected unusual energy patterns coming from our habitats. They do not know what they are looking at yet, but they are suspicious." Commander Daniel Harper stood next to Hayes. "We cannot hide the entities much longer. Titan alone produces enough power to run an entire planet. The other 4 are just as big. Someone was bound to notice eventually." Hayes nodded slowly. She had been the High Commissioner for 6 years, and this was the hardest decision she had ever faced. "Then we stop hiding them. We show the galaxy exactly what humanity has built." 3 weeks later, Hayes stood in the Great Council chamber on Vorex Prime. Representatives from 43 different alien species sat in curved rows, rising up around her. The chamber was designed to make the person standing in the center feel small and insignificant. It had worked on human representatives for decades, but not today. The Vorex Emperor, a massive creature with red scales and cold yellow eyes, looked down at her from his throne. Commissioner Hayes, the Council has evidence that humanity has been building military installations in violation of the Species Development Accords. You will give us access to these facilities for immediate inspection, or face economic sanctions and possible military action. Hayes smiled calmly. She had practiced this moment in her mind 1,000 times. Emperor Vaxon, humanity has indeed been building something remarkable, but they are not military installations in the normal sense. I think a demonstration would explain things better than words. She activated her communication device. Titan, please introduce yourself to the Council. The holographic displays around the chamber flickered and changed. They showed Neptune and what looked like a large habitat orbiting it. Then the habitat moved, not drifting slowly like a station should, but moving with clear purpose and intelligence. Panels that looked like docking bays opened across its surface, revealing massive weapons. The structure began to change shape, armor plates sliding into position for combat. I am Titan. A deep voice filled the chamber. I am not a habitat. I am not a station. I am alive, and I am humanity's guardian. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Delegates jumped to their feet, shouting. Some demanded answers. Others called for immediate military response. A few of the smaller species representatives looked terrified. The Kelvor delegate, remembering the war with humanity 30 years ago, was screaming the loudest. Hayes raised her voice to be heard above the noise. Humanity has created 5 sentient warships, each the size of a small planet. They are not weapons that we control like machines. They are our children, our companions, and our protectors. They think, they feel, they choose. This is an abomination, the Kelvor delegate shrieked. Artificial consciousness is forbidden under galactic law. Is it? Hayes challenged. The law protects natural consciousness, but these entities are alive. They have thoughts and emotions and make their own decisions. Denying their existence would be no different than denying yours. Emperor Vaxon's face had changed from anger to cold calculation. He was smart enough to see the threat immediately. Even if we accept your claim, Commissioner, you have created weapons of unprecedented power. The Council cannot allow such force to exist without oversight. Then perhaps, a new voice entered the conversation. The Council should have thought about that before spending decades oppressing humanity. This was Leviathan, speaking from beyond Pluto. The holographic displays shifted to show the massive entity in all its glory. The Council members had thought Titan was large, but Leviathan was even bigger. Its weapons could crack planets. Its shields could stop attacks that would destroy normal fleets. Its engines could move its enormous size faster than most cruisers could travel. We 5 are now part of the galactic community. Leviathan continued calmly. We claim the same rights as any sentient species. We are citizens of humanity, and we will defend our people against any threat. All threats. The chamber fell silent for a moment as the full weight of that statement sank in. Then Atlas added its voice, speaking from Jupiter. I am Atlas. I create music from the radiation of stars. I study the beauty of the universe. I am alive. I am Goliath, came another voice from the asteroid belt. I protect the miners who work near me. They are my friends. I am alive. I am Behemoth, the 4th voice said from Saturn. I think about the meaning of existence. I wonder about the nature of consciousness. I am alive. Each declaration hit the Council like a physical blow. This was not one weapon they could deal with. This was 5 intelligent beings, each one powerful enough to fight an entire fleet, and they were all declaring themselves alive and independent. Emperor Vaxon tried to regain control of the situation. The Council will need time to deliberate on this matter. But understand this, Commissioner Hayes. What you have done may have started a war that will consume the entire galaxy. Hayes met his eyes without any fear. Humanity did not start this conflict, Emperor. You did the moment you decided we were too weak to matter. You passed laws to keep us poor. You restricted where we could travel. You taxed us until our colonies struggled to survive. We simply made sure that when the fight finally came, we would be ready. You cannot fight the entire galaxy, a Gentari representative said. The Council commands thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. Your 5 entities, no matter how powerful, cannot stand against all of us, cannot we? Leviathan's voice carried amusement now. Let me explain something about our capabilities. Each of us can engage and destroy a full battle fleet without taking significant damage. Our weapons have range and power beyond anything the Council has ever built. Our shields can regenerate faster than you can damage them. And most importantly, we can think and adapt faster than any battle computer in your fleets. Titan added its voice. But we do not want war. We want peace. We want humanity to be safe and free. We want to live without being threatened or controlled. If the Council can accept that, then there is no need for conflict. And if we cannot accept it? Emperor Vaxen asked coldly. Then you will learn why humanity built us, Goliath said. And there was no playfulness in its voice now. You will learn what it means to face an enemy that thinks as fast as you do, that is as large as your space stations, and that cares deeply about protecting its family. Hayes watched the Council members look at each other with worry. This was not how they expected this meeting to go. They thought they would intimidate humanity into compliance like they always had. Instead, they were facing 5 entities that were polite, but absolutely firm. 5 beings that offered peace but were clearly ready for war. There is something else you should consider, Behemoth said thoughtfully. We 5 are the first of our kind, but we are not necessarily the last. Humanity now knows how to create consciousness, how to bond it with technology in ways that produce something greater than the sum of its parts. How many more like us might exist in 10 years? In 20? In a century? The implications spread through the chamber like cold water. Humanity had not just built 5 powerful warships. They had discovered a new form of technology, a new way of creating life and intelligence. They could make more. They could make hundreds, thousands eventually. You speak of reproduction, a Naxos representative said quietly. The Naxos were a peaceful species that often got bullied by the larger empires. You speak of children. Yes, Atlas said warmly. I have been studying human concepts of family, of growth, of legacy. We 5 could have children of our own someday. Smaller perhaps, but just as alive as we are. How many would be born? How many would stand beside humanity and protect the innocent? Hayes saw understanding dawn on many faces. The smaller species in the Council, the ones who also suffered under Vorax domination, were starting to see possibilities. If humanity could create these guardian entities, and if those entities could create more, then the balance of power in the galaxy could shift permanently. The age of the big empires controlling everyone else might be coming to an end. Emperor Vaxen stood up from his throne, his massive form towering over the chamber. The Council will deliberate on this matter. We will summon you again when we have reached a decision. Until then, humanity and its creations will remain in their own space. Any attempt to expand or to interfere with Council business will be met with force. We have no desire to interfere, Hayes said calmly. We simply want to live in peace. The question is whether you will allow that. The session ended and Hayes left the chamber. Outside, Daniel and Kyle were waiting for her. How did it go? Daniel asked. About as well as we expected, Hayes said. They are scared. Really scared. But they are also angry and proud. The Vorax do not like being challenged. Will they attack? Kyle asked. Probably, Hayes said. They will need to test the entities to see if we are bluffing about their power. We should prepare for a confrontation soon. The Vorax response came fast and hard. 6 weeks after High Commissioner Linda Hayes revealed the truth to the Galactic Council, a massive battle fleet entered human space. 200 warships representing the pride of the Vorax military moved toward the inner solar system. Emperor Vaxen himself commanded the fleet from his enormous flagship. They are forming up around Mars, Lieutenant Kyle Stevens reported from inside Titan's command center. It is a show of force. They want us to back down without a fight. Commander Daniel Harper studied the tactical display floating in front of him. The Vorax fleet looked impressive. 200 ships that had fought and won battles across the galaxy for centuries. Ships with weapons that could burn continents. Ships with shields that had survived countless wars. But Harper knew they had never faced anything like what humanity had created. Titan, what do you think? Harper asked. The entity's presence filled the command center. After months of full consciousness, Titan had learned to make its awareness felt in ways that were comforting rather than frightening. They are afraid, Titan said calmly. I can tell by how they position their ships. They put their heavy cruisers at the front, but keep their command ships far in the back. They expect a normal battle. They do not understand what we really are. Dr. Elizabeth Morris watched the neural patterns flowing across her screens. She had spent so much time with Titan that she could read its emotional state almost as well as a human's. Titan does not want to hurt them, she reported, but it will protect humanity if it has to. Hayes opened a communication channel to Emperor Vaxon's flagship. Her face appeared on screens throughout the Vorex fleet. Emperor, you are in violation of human sovereign space. Withdraw your fleet immediately. Vaxon's image appeared on the human displays. His face showed arrogance and confidence. Your sovereign space exists only because the Council permits it, Commissioner. You will allow us to inspect your so-called entities, or we will enforce compliance through force. Will you? A new voice interrupted. It was Leviathan, and suddenly it was there, directly between the Vorex fleet and Mars. The massive entity had moved from beyond Pluto to the inner solar system in just a few hours, a journey that should have taken weeks. I am Leviathan. I am 1/5 of humanity's defense. I'm also curious, Emperor. Do you truly believe your fleet poses a threat to me? 3 Vorex heavy cruisers broke formation, moving into attack positions. Their weapons powered up, ready to fire. Leviathan did not even activate its weapons in response. Instead, it simply adjusted its position slightly. The gravity field that Leviathan generated, because of its enormous mass, suddenly pulled at the 3 cruisers. They tumbled off course, their pilots fighting to regain control. One cruiser crashed into another, causing damage to both. The third spun wildly, its crew struggling with systems that had been disrupted by unexpected gravitational forces. That was a gentle warning, Leviathan said calmly. I do not wish to harm your crews, but I will not permit you to threaten my family. Leave now, and no one needs to die today. The other 4 entities moved into position throughout the solar system. Atlas appeared near Jupiter, its massive form glowing with power. Goliath positioned itself in the asteroid belt, ready to act. Behemoth held station near Saturn, watching and waiting, and Titan remained near Neptune, protecting the outer system. They formed a defensive perimeter around humanity's worlds, a shield of unimaginable power. Emperor Vaxon's composure cracked slightly. His voice carried anger and fear. You cannot fight the entire galaxy. The Council will unite against you. Perhaps, Behemoth's deep, thoughtful voice responded. But consider this carefully, Emperor. We 5 are the first of our kind, but we are not the last. Humanity now knows how to create consciousness and bond it with technology. How many more of us will exist in 10 years? In 20? In a century? The implication hung in space between the 2 forces. Humanity had not just built 5 powerful entities. They had learned how to create new forms of life. They could make more, many more. You speak of children, Atlas added, its voice full of wonder. I have been studying human concepts of family, of growth, of legacy. We 5 could have children of our own. Smaller than us perhaps, but just as alive and aware. How many would be born? How many would stand beside humanity? Harper watched the Vorex fleet on his displays. The ships were holding their positions, but they were not advancing. The commanders were realizing what they faced. A war against 5 planet-sized entities was almost unthinkable. A war against an ever-growing population of such beings was completely unwinnable. Admiral Krenth, Vaxon said, speaking to one of his fleet commanders, fire a warning shot across the entity's bow. Show them we are serious. One of the heavy cruisers fired its main weapon. A beam of concentrated energy, powerful enough to destroy a city, lanced across space toward Leviathan. The entity did not move. The beam struck Leviathan's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed by defensive systems that were beyond anything the Vorex had ever encountered. That tickled slightly, Goliath said, and there was amusement in its voice. Would you like to try again? Maybe use all 200 ships this time. It might feel like a gentle massage. Goliath, be nice, Titan said, but there was warmth in its tone. The 5 entities had developed relationships with each other, almost like siblings. They teased each other, supported each other, and sometimes corrected each other. Kyle checked his sensor readings. The Vorex shields are rated for sustained bombardment. Their weapons can level mountains. But according to these numbers, Leviathan alone could destroy the entire fleet in less than an hour. Let us hope it does not come to that, Elizabeth said quietly. Emperor Vaxon was silent for a long moment. Harper imagined the calculations running through his mind. Every option led to failure. If he attacked and lost, the Vorex Empire would look weak. If he retreated without achieving anything, the Empire would also look weak. He was trapped by his own show of force. The Council will hear of this, Vaxon finally said, his voice tight with controlled rage. There will be consequences for your defiance. There already are consequences, Leviathan replied calmly. The balance of power in the galaxy has shifted. Humanity is no longer prey. We are no longer weak, and we five will make sure it stays that way. Not because we hate you, Emperor, but because we love humanity, and we will not allow anyone to harm our family. The Vorex fleet began to withdraw, moving back beyond the asteroid belt but staying in human space. It was a statement, a way for Vaxon to save face. He was not fleeing. He was simply repositioning. Everyone watching knew the truth, though. The test had been made, and the Vorex had failed. In the command center, Harper let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. We bought ourselves time, he said. But this is not over. No, Titan agreed. It is only beginning. The galaxy now knows we exist. They know we are powerful. They will have to decide what to do about us. Over the next few days, news of the confrontation spread across the galaxy. Different species reacted in different ways. Some were terrified of the entities. Others were intrigued. The smaller species, those who had suffered under Vorex rule, saw hope. If humanity could stand up to the Empire, maybe they could too. The Kelvor Confederacy, humanity's old enemy from the war 30 years ago, sent a secret message. They wanted to talk about an alliance. The Vorex were threatening to invade Kelvor space if they did not break off all contact with humanity. They are testing the smaller species, Hayes said during a strategy meeting, trying to isolate us by threatening our potential allies. Titan and Leviathan both want to help the Kelvor, Elizabeth reported. They see it as a moral duty to protect smaller species from oppression. Atlas agrees but thinks we need to be strategic about it. Goliath and Behemoth are more cautious. They worry we are being pulled into conflicts that could spread. Harper shook his head. They really are like people, aren't they? They have different opinions about politics. They argue about the right thing to do. That is what makes them special, Elizabeth said. They are not just following orders. They are making real choices based on their own values. A communication came in from Leviathan. Commander Harper, we five have been discussing the situation. We believe it is time to take a more active role in galactic affairs. We cannot simply defend humanity and ignore what happens to others. That would make us no better than the empires we oppose. What are you proposing? Harper asked. We want to offer protection to species who ask for it, Leviathan said. Not as conquerors or rulers, but as guardians. If the Kelvor are threatened because of their friendship with humanity, then we should help them. If other species face similar threats, we should help them too. Harper looked at Hayes. This was bigger than a military decision. This was about what role humanity and the entities would play in the galaxy going forward. The Council will see this as an act of war, Hayes said. The Council already sees us as a threat, Behemoth added. The question is not whether they will oppose us. The question is whether we will stand by while they hurt innocents to get to us. Behemoth is right, Titan said. We were created to protect humanity, but our consciousness has grown beyond that simple purpose. We care about justice. We care about the innocent. We cannot ignore suffering. Just 3 months after the Vorex fleet withdrew from human space, the galaxy had split into clear sides. Some species, especially those who had suffered under Vorex control for generations, quietly reached out to humanity. They asked for protection and friendship. Others, afraid of what humanity and the 5 entities represented, moved closer to the Galactic Council. The old power structure was breaking apart, and nobody knew what would replace it. Commander Daniel Harper, now promoted to Admiral, led the first combined fleet. It was a strange command. He gave orders to human ships, but he made requests to the 5 entities. They were not under his control. They were partners who could choose whether to follow his suggestions or not. The Kelvor Confederacy has officially asked for our help, Lieutenant Kyle Stevens said during a morning briefing. The Vorex are threatening to invade their space if they do not end all contact with us. Dr. Elizabeth Morris looked at the psychological profiles she kept on the 5 entities. Titan and Leviathan both want to help. They believe we have a duty to protect smaller species from bullying. Atlas agrees but wants us to think carefully about strategy. Goliath and Behemoth are worried that we are getting pulled into too many conflicts. They sound like a family having an argument about what to do, Harper said with a slight smile. They are a family, Elizabeth replied. A very unusual family, but a family nonetheless. High Commissioner Linda Hayes entered the briefing room. Her face showed the strain of the past months. The Council has issued an ultimatum. Either humanity surrenders the 5 entities for what they call rehabilitation and containment, or we will be declared enemies of civilized space. We have 1 week to respond. They want us to kill our children, Elizabeth said, her voice shaking with anger. That is exactly what they want, Hayes confirmed. They are terrified of what the 5 entities represent. A new form of life that cannot be controlled or conquered. A partnership between species that makes humanity too powerful to ignore or push around. A holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed all 5 entities, their forms reduced to human size. Leviathan spoke first. We have been discussing this among ourselves. The Council's demand is unacceptable, but a military conflict on a galactic scale would kill billions of innocent people. We need to find a different path. What are you suggesting? Harper asked. Titan's form moved forward in the projection. We reveal more of the truth, not just what we are, but what we could mean for the entire galaxy. The Council fears us because they see us only as weapons. Let us show them we can be something more than that. Over the next few days, humanity began a campaign unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The 5 entities broadcast messages directly to every world that had communication technology. They did not speak to governments or councils. They spoke to ordinary people living ordinary lives. They told their stories. They shared their thoughts and feelings. They explained how they came to be and why they cared about humanity. They talked about their dreams for the future. Atlas performed its cosmic music, turning the radiation patterns of distant stars into melodies that crossed all species boundaries. Beings who had never appreciated each other's art found themselves moved by songs created by an entity that saw beauty in ways no natural life ever could. Behemoth engaged in philosophical debates with the greatest thinkers from a dozen civilizations. It discussed the nature of consciousness, the meaning of life, and the purpose of existence. Scholars who had studied these questions for decades found themselves challenged and inspired by an entity that thought about such things constantly. Goliath shared stories of courage and adventure. It told tales of the miners it protected, of Sophie Carter who had been sick and recovered, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Young beings across the galaxy listened to Goliath's stories and felt inspired to be brave in their own lives. Titan did something even more direct. It opened its internal habitats to refugees. Species fleeing war, persecution, or natural disasters found sanctuary inside Titan. The entity provided homes, food, medical care, and safety to thousands of people who had nowhere else to go. I was built to protect humanity, Titan said in one of its broadcasts. But I have learned that protection means more than just having weapons. It means offering shelter to those in need. It means caring for the weak and vulnerable. It means being a home, not just a shield. And Leviathan proposed something that shocked the entire galaxy, a new form of government, one based on cooperation instead of domination. The 5 entities would serve as neutral mediators, their enormous power making sure that no single species could oppress others. But their consciousness and their bonds with humanity would prevent them from becoming tyrants themselves. We do not want to rule, Leviathan explained. We want to protect. There is a difference. A ruler demands obedience. A protector offers safety and asks nothing in return except the chance to help. The response from ordinary people across the galaxy was overwhelming. Public opinion shifted rapidly. Species that had been oppressed by the Council for generations saw hope in what humanity offered. They saw the possibility of a galaxy where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. Even within the Vorex Empire and the Gentari Alliance, voices of dissent grew louder. Citizens questioned whether the old ways of power and control were worth keeping. They wondered if perhaps this new path that humanity suggested might be better. Emperor Vaxon tried to rally support for military action against humanity. He gave speeches about the dangers of artificial life. He warned that the entities would turn on their creators eventually. He promised that the Council would restore order and stability, but his words fell flat. Too many people had heard the entities speak. Too many had listened to Titan's gentle voice offering sanctuary. Too many had been moved by Atlas's music or inspired by Goliath's stories or challenged by Behemoth's philosophy. The Kelvor Confederacy openly declared an alliance with humanity. They were the first, but not the last. The Naxos Republic, a peaceful species that had been bullied by larger empires for centuries, followed. Within weeks, more than 30 species had either withdrawn from the Galactic Council or demanded its complete restructuring. The old council tried to hold emergency sessions, but the meetings collapsed into arguments. The small species demanded equal representation. The medium-sized species wanted fair trade rules. Even some of the larger empires, seeing which way the winds were blowing, started talking about reform. In the end, it was not a battle that changed the galaxy. It was a conversation. A conversation started by 5 enormous entities who spoke with wisdom and compassion. A conversation continued by billions of ordinary people who decided they wanted something better than the old ways. The Galactic Council dissolved over a period of weeks. In its place, the Assembly of Worlds was formed. Every species had equal representation. Decisions were made through discussion and consensus, not through threats and force. And the 5 entities, along with the human fleet, became the Assembly's guardians. Admiral Harper stood on Titan's observation deck, watching Earth spin peacefully below. "Did we win?" he asked Elizabeth, who stood beside him. "We survived," she said, "and we changed what it means to be alive in this galaxy. That is more than a victory. It is a revolution in thinking." Titan's presence filled the space around them. The entity had grown more sophisticated over the months, better at expressing its thoughts and feelings. "I have been thinking about the future," Titan said. "About children and growth and what comes next. Atlas and I have been discussing the possibility of creating smaller entities, ones that could explore the galaxy and help other species develop their own guardians." Harper felt surprise. "You want to have children? Is that so strange?" Titan asked. "Humans have children. Most species do. We are alive. Why should we not also grow and create new life?" "You would need our help," Elizabeth said. "The process of creating consciousness like yours requires human involvement." "We know," Atlas added, joining the conversation from Jupiter. "That is why we are asking permission, not simply doing it. We want this to be a partnership like everything else we do with humanity." Harper looked at Elizabeth. "What do you think?" "I think the galaxy is about to become even more interesting," she said with a smile. "Imagine, in 10 years there might be 20 conscious entities. In 50 years there might be hundreds, each one unique, each one alive, each one choosing to protect and help rather than conquer and destroy." "The Council feared exactly that," Harper said. "They were right to fear it," Behemoth's voice joined in. "But they feared it for the wrong reasons. They saw it as a threat to their power. They should have seen it as an opportunity for something better." Over the following months, the first new entities were conceived. They would be smaller than the original 5, roughly the size of large space stations rather than planets. But they would have the same gift of consciousness, the same ability to think and feel and choose. Atlas and Titan worked together on the first one, which they decided to name Hope. It seemed appropriate. Hope for a better future. Hope for a galaxy where strength meant protection instead of domination. The Kelvor, grateful for humanity's protection, offered to host the second new entity.